What is up, everybody? CP and SJ with you for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We talk the world of sports, wagering, having a good time, having some good beverages. Big fight weekend here this past weekend. I know you had a lot of picks on that front, and that's where we're going to start here in a minute. Otherwise, we're still counting down the days here. We're getting closer and closer to college football.
Yeah, I don't know if they still do. It's because it may be a little bit over the top, with as far as terminology. But the dog days, it's feeling like that lately. So if that still be able to be termed that, we're definitely in that mode. But I mean, honestly, you look to the calendar. It's week 0 is kind of a stupid term I always thought. But honestly, as far as like making games earlier, that's one of the best things that's happened to a sports fan, because it does. Especially someone that's not into the summer games and stuff, it definitely helps a lot. And then even you look, I mean, preseason for the NFL specifically, that's right around the corner. So we're getting closer, and like this weekend was a good weekend to help. But man, it was a little taxing on the eyeballs and the attention. There's 3 or 4 screens going at once. Fun. I'm not complaining, but it was sometimes it's like, and the thing was like you can go and like last weekend before, it's like very light, and then all of a sudden one weekend it's like, let's put three big cards on the same weekend.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I wish there was more spacing. I understand there's probably, reasons financially more so than anything why it's like that, but still it's like, how about you space these out a little bit and help the fans out? Because I mean, that's what you need. You need the eyeballs. So it do you better to not, kind of break up that audience.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure a lot of it's just kind of their own scheduling worlds. You don't really worry about what else is going on sometimes, but yeah, that is a problem. But yeah, I guess you had the March Madness of the fight world going on, so that works. As we get rolling, we like to talk about what is lubricating our dulcet tones here for you as well. And SJ, what do you got pouring over there this week?
Actually, I just went back to my old buddies at Yingling. I hadn't had one for a while, and honestly, I'm trying to remember. Like, I think it feels like for some reason I have never grabbed this variety before, the Golden Pilsner. I just felt like something a little lighter, and I know I pretty much always stick with just the lighter or a flight typically, just because I want to. Hot day was probably going to be a long night with, I mentioned, the amount of fights and stuff going on, so I didn't want to go anything too over the top there. So I just go on something. But no, this is a Pilsner. Everybody can really appreciate a good Pilsner, and definitely with Yingling, not surprised there at nothing, nothing out of sorts here, just kind of your standard deal. But I mean, that's kind of what they do well, the standard deal. No doubt. I'm still counting down the days. I don't know when that Iowa, legality is coming here with the supply, but it's got to be down the horn here soon, because they finally went into Illinois. We talked about that last year, and man, it's got to be close to the border here now. I know people definitely make the trip down your way a lot to get the stuff, so hopefully that's going to change here soon. I did have a chance here over the weekend actually to sample quite a few different or over the week, actually, of quite a few different beverages. I was at a conference across the state and got to hit up a couple of different breweries and stuff, so you're trying, different wacky stuff out there, and I was pretty pleased. I didn't really have anyone, sometimes you have a couple where you're like, I really would never drink this again, but most of them I was like, yeah, pretty decent beer. And maybe it was just because I had it as the 4th or 5th one, and I felt like everything was good at that point, but give them a little love. I will say I've got one coming up here that I'm going to share on the show once we get a little closer to football season. That is from the fine folks over there at Back Pocket Brewing. I won't give it away yet, but they came up with some really good marketing, I'll say. So, yeah, I'm going to get that one going for football season. But otherwise, what I'm drinking today is I'd actually tracked this down here recently. We talked about this stuff earlier, I think even before the summer started, because the advertising started to show up different places, and I could never decide where I could find it or see it, but I did get a hold of some of the Modelo, the Aguas Frescas. So they've got that line going. Of course, they've got the Cheladas going too that we talked about. So there's 2 different lines, but this is more of the, what you think of as just kind of like a refreshing fruit forward drink, that's spiked with something. So this one that I'm drinking is actually the hibiscus. which normally I would say is probably something that would turn me off pretty fast. Like I'm not really into putting flowers in my beverage, but it's actually pretty good. I have to admit I liked all of the flavors to a degree, some more than others. I thought the lime and salt one was probably the favorite, I think, overall, but this one actually is pretty dang good. I'd rank it up there close to the top. And I even had a guy in my office who's just kind of he's more your standard just beer drinker, whiskey guy, and he bought him, and he ranked this one as his favorite. So you never know what somebody's going to enjoy. But I would recommend, if you do get them, get a little glass and get some ice and pour it over ice. It just seems to be a little bit better that way. It's weird because it's not really carbonated a whole lot. It gets like a real kind of thick, smooth head on it, like almost like it's like a nitro pour, so to speak, is how it kind of tastes. But yeah, good stuff. I'd recommend trying it, especially if you're somebody that likes to venture out and just try something weird once in a while. Pretty good. I'd give it a thumbs up. So I was glad I was able to track it down.
You can't go wrong with when those two words, nitro pour. I'm interested. So yeah, I've seen those, and it's one of those things too where you're a little leery because of just the size of how it's packaged. Because you're like, can I really think? Is it a 12 or is it a 16 pack or 18, something like that?
It was a 12.
Yeah. So I mean, not terrible, but I mean, also if you don't necessarily like it. 12 is a lot of things to drink. So, but I'm glad it turned out well for you, and I'll definitely be snagging one of those ASAP. I know it was going to be like a build your own 6-pack type of thing, but those are kind of a lost art these days. It seems like you don't find those much.
It is, yeah, and that's sad too, because that always was good. And I would say too, the places that I do still find that, like, it pretty much prices you out of the market because they mark the damn things up each, like, $4 for each one. Oh, thanks a lot. What am I going to do now? Spend $25 on my 6-pack. Yeah, probably not going to do that. So yeah, interesting stuff. I definitely would recommend giving it a try. I did find another place that has the chiladas too, so I'll probably do that at some point here, but I just haven't pulled the trigger yet. So we'll get to that taste test here down the road. As we get started here on the show, we're going to get right into that fight weekend. So SJ had given you some ideas and thoughts on what's going on there. We actually had hoped to have a little video preview out for you. It didn't work out due to my failings, but I did get those picks out there for you, and SJ was, of course, locked in, as he said, with the 3 screens going there. So we're going to run down here for you what was going on. We'll start on the boxing side. And you had a pretty a decent matchup there for some bigger guys with Usyk and Dubois going at it. Had a controversial situation when they fought back in 2023, and I did check out the clip that SJ sent over to me as well from that. And yeah, I mean, definitely was a punch where you probably wouldn't want to get punched. I mean, it wasn't like a direct, like, he reached down and uppercutted him right in the groin, but it probably got low enough to feel bad. I don't know that it was intentional, but, those things are for somebody to decide if that was, the case or not, and we'll probably never know. But interesting kind of lead up, I guess, and build up to a fight like that.
Well, even in, with depending on each fight, it's always different, too, because before, I think it's a thing people just think you say if you're not used to, don't watch it very often. But, I mean, the referee literally does visit each fighter before the fight and goes over the whole, laundry list of what's going to be called and what's not going to be called. And it could have been a thing where he told him, like, this is good or this isn't good, and kind of where it would be low or not low. Good thing with that fight was, though, that he did, maybe didn't beat the count. That was kind of in question. But since it was ruled, an illegal punch, the count didn't matter. So I guess in that case, though, it was good that Usyk was able to rally and kind of get the win on his end, and not – that wasn't like it wasn't like he didn't make the call and then he won because of that. So that did help. And then this time, definitely left no doubt. It was just, I don't even see. It would seem like these guys weren't even in the same league, just to put it bluntly. Just, I mean, and I think a lot of people thought it would go that way, and it wasn't like I was out on a limb there calling for the win. I went kind of doubled it up there. Just could have seen maybe not getting a stoppage, so a decision was an option. But I went really heavy on the finish, the KO, TKO, and that's what happened. So as far as, just overall too with the fights, the win loss wasn't great, but as far as like the ones I went heavy on the confidence level, if you will, those definitely kind of made it an okay weekend. But
Okay.
in that, as far as the Usyk fight goes, I mean, just total domination is, I mean, literally just beat the piss out of him. And it was like, it's always a good atmosphere, especially when they, getting the bigger, stadiums over there in Europe. But man, that was kind of, as far as everything, like the build up to it, the fight didn't necessarily live up unless you were like really pulling for Usyk or wanted like, had some money on a quick finish. Then it was like, oh, it's good, but it wasn't a competitive level. And now it's like, the pound for pound list is always like a big deal. People like to talk about, and he's kind of even with how many quality fighters there are these days, he's kind of out there by himself anymore. Just someone that's moved up the weights. And when you go all the way up to heavyweight and you're freaking knocking people out and not really being challenged, kind of says something compared to no disrespect to someone like Pacquiao who fought this weekend too, going 8 division champion. But I mean, to move up to the biggest weight, the baddest man on the planet type of thing, that's pretty impressive. And I know there's not, the names we're used to in the it's probably not as deep of a division as it used to be, but that's, I mean, heavyweight still, that's always going to hold some weight, no pun intended. Just when people think of, the fighters who come to mind first and from wherever, whatever era they grew up in or whenever they're a fan, it's usually heavyweights that come to mind first.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, good or not. I mean, like you said, that is definitely what people I think are drawn to, and what we know is some of the big names from the past for sure. So yeah, interesting. And I guess, like you said, it pretty much proved his point, I guess, as far as he wants to be that guy in that conversation. That's interesting there. Had some stuff then, a couple fights going on in Vegas. You mentioned Manny Pacquiao, who obviously is widely regarded as one of the best fighters of all time, taking on Mario Barrios there for welterweight title. SJ, what do you think about that one?
Well, this was honestly, I mean, like I mentioned, the win-loss not great, but we were able to pad the numbers there with, or pad the pocketbook at least with our confidence level. But this was kind of the most of the thing that stuck out to me was just another bad decision, a screw job, if you will. There's no other way to term it. I mean, it wasn't like an amazing performance where he knocked, Pacquiao knocked him down a couple times or even really had him in big trouble. He definitely stunned him and buzzed him a few times. And Barrios was kind of like, I don't know if he was like worried about, getting knocked out, obviously, because the history there. He hasn't fought, for several years. I think it was 4 or 5 year retirement, and also 46 years old. But still, obviously, he had enough of his respect. He didn't really kind of. I guess I get that you're the champion, and you probably feel a little more like, oh, he's got to come take the belt for me. But at the same time, it's like you got to throw some punches and do something. I mean, he was just like shelling up and just kind of catching whatever Manny was throwing, and then just hoping that he would get a decision on his in the end. He didn't get a decision, but he definitely got a favorable outcome because, I mean, I don't think I've seen too many people at all that would say that are like, oh, that draw is not the worst decision. Then, there's always a couple here or there that got to be the, I guess whatever the, the kind of the outlandish and go out on a limb and take a stance no matter what. But people that are like being honest with themselves and know the sport, that's a pretty bad a screw job there. And it's happened to him a few times in the past, which is odd considering like how much people really like within the game kind of respect him and are just like behind him. It's not like he's one of those guys that like, it'd be different if he's like a Mayweather. You could see him getting screwed because he just kind of is abrasive and people, doesn't really do much to get people on his side. But, someone like Pacquiao, it's a little surprising, but it's not also that surprising considering like the, PBC being involved in that type of entity. They're kind of that same way, but that was probably, the biggest, like there was also, an outcome that probably in the UFC that not necessarily was like a bad outcome, but kind of like, that was one that really kind of, I was like, damn it, that pissed off me as far as the picks I made go. But this one was actually like, I'm like, I don't even feel bad about that one because I mean, I Barrios by decision was my, was what I thought was going to happen. But I also just being such a long shot and the history that he's had and just kind of what he's done, it was worth sprinkling a little bit on Manny too as a long shot because he was like, I think plus 250 some places, depending on when and where you played it, just on money line straight up. So definitely played that one as well. So that kind of made up for would have made up for the disappointment had they got it right. But then they go with the draw. So either way, so that was on the one cause, and even whatever the play is the play. I mean, just having fun out here, whatever. But be nice to make some extra. But it's more about like that was a legitimate legitimate kind of error. It wasn't something that was just like, you could see it going either way. So that one really stuck out. And then on the same card was you had Fandora against Zoo, which is a rematch. And that one actually hit pretty good on the unders, but I was more pissed. I'm like, why didn't I put a little more on it? I didn't go too. I wanted to kind of throw down because Zoo has been kind of like fading. He lost the first fight with. I mean, it was a nasty gash. I sent you over the clip. I don't know if you're able to see it, but I mean, just right on the. I mean, just like a movie, horror scene, just disgusting. And so, I mean, and then he lost the fight right after that because he kind of tried to come back quick. Cause obviously, it's probably like I only lost the fight because the cut and whatever the reason, he didn't come out, so he lost again. He did have a win in between the rematch here with Fandor, but it wasn't anybody that was like, oh, he's back type thing. So I was just like, I kind of felt like he was on the way out, and it looks like he might be. And he literally just between rounds said, I don't want to fight anymore, essentially. And so then I was like, oh, that under 10.5 easy, because I think that was 5th round or so, somewhere around the middle of the fight. So I just wish I would have went a little heavier on that one, but we hit that. And then the one I thought I was a little bit more honed in on this one, but it was just a little bit more of a tougher fight with Bam Rodriguez there on a different card at the Star, where the Big 12 had their media days. They're getting a lot of action these days. They're in Frisco, but put on another amazing performance. He got the stoppage, but it wasn't until round 10, which sounds like not until 10, but for him that's a little surprising just because he's definitely the pound for pound list we mentioned earlier. He's definitely climbing those ranks. Smaller guys though, so it's a little bit the lighter weights, so it doesn't kind of get the traction. But for as far as the size wise, he's about as best knockout artist as you're going to get, and it could be setting up for a matchup with him against Inoue, from Japan, who's another pound for pound guy. So that will be something to watch there, because that would be some major. That's a stadium type of fight there if they can get those two matched up.
Yeah, kind of one of those must see TV type of deals. That'd be cool. Then we moved on from the boxing side of it over to the UFC 318 there in New Orleans, and had a couple of different fights there to look at with Holloway and Poirier, and then also Holland and Rodriguez. SJ, what were you gunning for there?
Yeah, I guess the started off pretty good, and then it just kind of faded a little on me there. Went with Marvin Vettori and Brandon Allen, and it was an early prelim fight, but just the winner, whoever win was by decision, ended up getting that. The one that kind of, I guess, going to the other one as far as like the play that I'm just like, oh man, I didn't see that one coming at all. Obviously, was the matchup with Michael Johnson and Zellhuber. Zellhuber was like 10 years. He might have been 13 or so. Anyway, at least 10 years younger than Michael Johnson, who's a St. Louis fighter, but he's been around forever. He just kind of he's a tough dude, but it just like at some point it's like it all leaves it's and he hadn't honestly. I mean, he won a couple of the last fights, but nothing like where you're like not in top 15, top 10 fighters, nothing like that. And so, but he put it on him. It wasn't he didn't win by finish, got a decision, but it was his fight the whole way through. So that one was a little bit. I kind of felt like, oh man, that I didn't see that one coming. So that was one I'd be like, damn, I gotta apologize for that one. That was a dog crap pick there. That one. Other than that, though, I mean, Ige, I went out with him, but I went real light because he was facing Patricio Pitbull, who's just come over from Bellator. He had lost his first UFC fight, but it was only a second time, and it ended up being like a close decision on that one. So that wasn't bad. The Holland and Rodriguez was close. We went under 2.5 on that one, and on two different occasions, both fighters had seconds away from finishing each other, and neither could complete that. But Rodriguez ended up winning a decision. It was a good fight. Honestly, probably fight of the night. I think they might have ended up getting that bonus. Other than like the main event was good though too, with Poirier and Holloway, and I went unders on that one too as my big bet. And same situation, both. Not even exact. I mean, literally like one or two more punches, and one of them wins it, and both had a chance to do so. And Max was probably closer on a couple of occasions, honestly, and he ended up winning the fight there. So I also sprinkled a little bit on Poirier because he was a plus money in his last fight in his home state. So being an underdog, I was like, it's worth one of those long shots. Maybe he gets it, but the under was more of my. And I was kind of surprised I didn't get there because it was, they had this belt they make up of the baddest, mother effer on the planet. And Max has held that belt pretty well. 'Cause he did lose to Poirier, who's the 45-pound champ now, but the belt wasn't on the line in that fight. And he's moving up to 55 now. So who knows? It's just like playing deck of cards here, shuffling out what belt do you want, and just move around. So
Yeah.
I kind of don't like that, but that's another topic. I don't mind here and there, but it's like pretty much if somebody wins a title, it's like, okay, I'm moving up or I'm moving down. Like just your weight class is your weight class. But it was, I mean, honestly, it was probably one of the for maybe not like in the bigger scheme of things of like this means a lot for this guy's career or now he's moving up here. But as far as action and like entertainment, it's probably one of their better events they've had lately. And on paper, it didn't seem like it was going to be that way, but you never know how the fights are going to play out. And in this case, they actually did have some pretty good action and, knockouts here and there, a couple submissions. So it wasn't all, because that's the thing. It does get a little bit, even if it's a good fight, sometimes like you get it. You want to see a little bit of, you get a little violence. That's what you go there for. So you don't necessarily just want to see a point fight. So it's good to have a little bit. Of course, you don't want anybody to get hurt too bad.
Yeah.
But you definitely, it is a fight. So you're looking to see a little bit of fighting. So that's good. But I mean, pretty good. Other than the fact of trying to, split your, it doesn't do anything for your ADD problems if you got that. But other than that, it was a pretty good night. Just maybe I wish we could have hit a couple more, but we were close. So we'll look at the next one and try to hit more. But that's just the way it goes with the fights. It's always, like I said, when two of those fights, if Rodriguez or Holland gets a shot there and Poirier does or Holloway does, then we're about like 5-2, 5-3, something like that. So it's a matter of very minimal, small margin for error with that game for sure.
Game of inches sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You bring up an interesting point there too. I think about, and this doesn't necessarily just apply to the fight game. I think it has to do with anything that we consume as spectators and sports fans. Is like you said, you never really know. I mean, as long as it ends up being a close battle between two competitive teams or individuals, like we enjoy that more than watching somebody getting their ass beat. I mean, that's just the nature of, I think, spectating in general. I mean, I've been to plenty of, I've covered plenty of high school athletic events where I knew both teams weren't any good in the grand scheme of things, but they played a good game and it was fun to watch. So, sometimes it's about that, the matchups, rather than, the big names, so to speak.
Yeah, I guess when you're talking fights wise, and even just I guess just sports in general, anytime because I mean more times than not, you probably would just our hobbies and interests. You have some kind of action on something. Probably it might not be your big stack, but you got to have something to keep you invested. But when you kind of forget, like sometimes I'll have to go and check because you start maybe rooting one way or watching, and you just you actually into the game, and you're like, oh, should I not be wanting this team to win or this guy to win? I got to double check and make sure. But that to me that means it's a good competition there because you're just kind of the suspension from reality is like the whole point of sports. Just kind of getting caught up in that moment and being like, this is just I don't nothing else matters except for this right here. So that's kind of I guess I've never I don't go into it thinking this way, but I just kind of going back and just my viewing habits and thinking of it that way. I'm like, to me that's how I kind of judge if it's a good competition or not. If I'm kind of just like that's all I'm worried about right there, and not necessarily checking a stat line or whatever.
Yeah, and we've all had plenty of those moments too, where we maybe sprinkle a little bit of something on a team, and then it gets into it, and the so-called underdog or it just the way the game's playing out, you kind of start leaning like, you know what, F it, I want these guys to win, I want them to pull it off, I don't care about the money anymore. Like it's just fun to see them pull this deal together. But that's how it goes sometimes. That's what makes it fun, I guess.
Or if you're in a state that's got some sense about them, you can do some live betting and throw some the other way, and then say, screw this ain't happening, or you just start wanting the other team to win.
Yeah, hedge yourself a little bit. So good stuff there. Like SJ said, more of those coming down the pike here down the road, so we'll probably have plenty more on that coming up when we get some other good fight cards coming down the way. We're going to continue as well here our series that we've been bringing to you on the show of our best college football games of the previous season. We've been doing that for a couple weeks now, so this will be week 3 of talking about some fun games that we really enjoyed and why we enjoyed them, I guess, and just kind of whet the appetite for maybe hopefully what we can expect to come here down the road with some great football games. We know we always get some every year, but we're just kind of highlighting some of the ones we thought were the best this last go-round. SJ, I'll let you start us off here. What do you got for us this week?
All right, well, we're gonna go to the Big Ten out in the storied Big Ten Stadium, the Coliseum out there in Los Angeles.
Fits right in.
Yeah, yeah, just right in the
Yeah,
middle of
the
everything. So,
Conference of Champions
well, I
used to
mean, I
be, or
guess you
whatever.
figure if it was the Rose Bowl, then you could maybe say, well, UCLA's always
That's true.
their stadiums because the obsession with that place. So,
Yeah.
but just a little bit further south, maybe not so much the case or whatever. But either way, USC hosted Penn State, and it was kind of one of those like early season games where it's like Penn State was coming in undefeated. USC was a little bit up and down. I know they had won that game against LSU early,
Yeah.
but other than that, they were kind of a little bit of a mixed bag. So you're like thinking, man, this could get out of hand here, and it did actually early, but not the way you'd think. Like USC took a 17-3 lead and then a 20-6 lead by the half. So I mean, kind of was the opposite of which way you thought it was going to go. It looked like they might be a route the opposite way, but Penn State ends up rallying. Didn't take the lead though until the fourth quarter. Oh, actually, they didn't even have a lead until overtime. Yeah, because I was thinking they took that field goal, but no, that just tied it. Yeah. So that it ended up going to overtime, and they win it 33-30. But just kind of a back and forth deal, and that was, to me, that was one of the first time, at least I hadn't watched them super close, but really got a good look at Tyler Warren, the tight end. That just was just kind of, I mean, it's one of those players like, yeah, he's a tight end, but I don't know. I guess he's more like a receiver / running back type of player, just the athleticism and that type of thing. So was a pretty breakout performance, if you will, just because it was one of those games seemed like national audience or just got a lot of replay, a lot of run. But either way, Penn State ends up winning 33-30. They were in overtime, but I think it was kind of, I guess, a moment where it's like USC, even though they lost, maybe they were like still put on like a good showing and was like, well, maybe they got something going there in the future, because they did. I mean, I guess they didn't end the season terribly, but to compete with a top 5 team at that point, I'm definitely thinking I took the points on that one, whatever it was, whatever the spread might have been. Definitely wasn't a 3-point spread. I know that. No. So, but I mean, it's just kind of one of those like wacky games, back and forth a little bit, and I mean, I think it was made it good too, at least in my perspective. Was it didn't seem like it was something that was like lost. It was more like they just came back and won it. Didn't seem like it was like where they fell apart and a team just kind of caved. Maybe Penn State didn't show up early, but whatever, time change, not used to that stuff, whatever, whatever you want to bring up about that. I'm sure that was one of the, talking points, especially in that early on in the game where I guess what it'd be. I mean, if anything though, that should help you being a 2:30 game, but that's always like the first thing they go to is like, well, the body clock or whatever it is. But I mean, you get 518 yards of offense. I think your body clock was pretty good there. No matter what you said before, that's what Penn State ended up with, and USC was over 400 too. So I guess about as I guess old Pac-12 land is about as close you're going to get to that kind of a shootout deal in the Big Ten, probably.
Yeah. I remember. I do remember watching a good chunk of that game, and it was just it was like just a crazy, furious rally there from Penn State, just chugging back in that second half. They did get that score to start the second half, got them a little closer, but you still felt like it was like a long road to climb. And every time they would get there, it was like USC would jump back out in front a little bit again. And then, then they finally caught up the end of the game. A couple turnovers there late, I think, that sent them to that OT session. And then, it was just a good performance. If I remember right, it was a hell of a few plays defensively for Penn State. Yeah, I mean, they forced 2 incompletions, and it was a run that was a loss of yardage. So it made the field goal extra difficult for USC on their first possession of OT, and they end up missing it. Then of course you got to make it to win it, and they do it. But it interesting, I guess, in the realm too of who that team is and what we all perceive them as too. And of course, it maybe didn't work out for them in the long run, but it was finally one of those moments where you're like, maybe Penn State is the real deal here for once. You kind of got that feeling that, it turned out, maybe USC wasn't quite as good as we wanted them to believe they were that first game against LSU, but still a tough game against a tough team, on the road, and you come back to win it. That's something that Penn State really hadn't done. So that was interesting to see. Now, they didn't win the big games later in the season that they really wanted to, but did kind of turn that tide a little bit for them. So, yeah, that was interesting, fun game for sure.
I don't use this book often or at all, but according to ESPN Bet, it was only a 3.5 favorite. Penn State was only a 3.5 point favorite, so wow. USC covered the number.
Yeah,
and over under 51.5, so they definitely got that as well. So I guess all the USC fans and the over bettors made out good that day. I mean, if you go through ESPN Bet, that is.
Yeah, interesting. The game that I'm going to go with here, and I don't know. I guess like we said, we're not necessarily doing these things in the order of we didn't rank them or anything. We're just kind of doing 5 that we really love. And I guess if I was thinking about where I'd put this one, I'm not sure exactly where I would go. I might be where I am here, about kind of middle of the pack. It turned out to be like an awesome game, an awesome finish, but it was so undetermined for so long that it made it disinteresting for quite a bit of the game. But it did turn out to be kind of a thrilling one, and a very controversial one, really, by the time it was all said and done. Arizona State, Texas is what I'm going with. This was in the college football playoff in the quarterfinals. Of course, Arizona State, got to sit there as the 4 seed and wait for Texas to come in. And Texas jumped on them. Like you thought, oh shit, here, this is not going to be good. It was a 14-3 lead for Texas at the end of the first quarter. They were up 17-3 at halftime, and you just didn't feel like Arizona State was ever going to get the offense together to be able to mount any kind of comeback in this game. And then, of course, second half, we all are familiar with Cam Skattebo there at Arizona State with the things that he did at the end of the season outside of this game, but definitely in this game. It was just kind of a hero run. He started doing everything for them. He ends up with 143 yards on the ground, a couple of scores. He threw a touchdown pass in the game, had a big catch in the game too. It's just like, one of those deals where a guy's he found his moment and he played really well in it. And then Arizona State set them up so great at the end of the game. I mean, they made the plays they needed to, got a couple of 2-point conversions, which, is pretty unheard of to do in any moment. And in that big of a moment, to send this thing to overtime. And then it came to, got Texas into a 4th down situation. And we all, I think a lot of us remember the decision for Arizona State to just kind of bring the house on that play, and didn't pay off. Of course, and Texas scores the touchdown that they need. And it ultimately ends up being the thing that wins them the game, because a turnover ends it on the other side for Arizona State. Even the coach, Dillingham afterwards was saying, my bad, my mistake. Like, I should not have made that call. He felt terrible about it. But again, just like anything in sports and college football especially, like, You make the play, you seem like a hero. You don't, you seem like an idiot. And in that moment, a lot of people did question it, and a ton of us, watching it, I think a lot of that reaction was shock. Like, what are we doing? No, like, all you had to do was make a stop. They had a long ways to go. It wasn't like it was a 4th and 1 or something, and you think you're gonna bring the house to shake things up or something. But they had I think 16 yards to pick up or something on that play, and they end up scoring to get the TD. So, but it turned out just to be a fun finish, and proved, I guess, a little bit to me, why this playoff is valuable. And why we love watching these teams battle it out, because of course everybody in the world outside of being an Arizona State fan, or maybe being a conference of the Big 12 fan, was going to say that Texas is going to beat the shit out of them, and thought they were doing that halfway through the game, and Arizona State fought back. So it was a good, I think, turning point for the playoff itself, as far as showing, hey, we don't know how these things are going to go, especially when you play out the entire game.
Yeah, the most thing I remember is obviously the comeback and then the call at the end, but also it's like, didn't they score? That was just to tie it, right? So they still had to score again to actually win it. And they scored like on the first play, I think, after they got it back.
Yeah.
When they started. So that was more, I'm like, yeah, that happened and that happened. But I'm like, did you don't score and then you give it up right away? That was just a little bit like, crap. But when you put yourself in that big of a hole, it's kind of that's the type of things that do happen when you're trying to play from behind the whole time. It's not an easy thing to do. And Didn't they show it? So his name puking on the sideline too.
Yeah.
So that was like another thing. I was like, oh my god. But I'm sure when the game started, you're probably thinking, where the hell was this a couple weeks ago in the conference championship?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah,
because they definitely feel like they're gonna lay an egg, but I guess end up being competitive. But again, it always sucks when it. I mean, it never comes down to one call, but in that situation, it's like, damn, that's and either it's a flag or it's not. It doesn't. I mean, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like. The certain teams just seem to get the benefit of the doubt more than others, and that's one of those teams. So that did suck. I was like, oh man, that was kind of almost too egregious. Where I'm like, I get where you'd be like, damn the refs, but I mean, they still shouldn't have got behind, but also you shouldn't have to apologize for making a comeback and then a bad call. Those two don't go hand in hand. So they did get a little bit of a bad flip of the coin there, but it was still an entertaining game. And then I guess you feel a little bit better about it, the fact that Texas didn't end up winning at all. Because if they would have, this would have a whole different, probably feel to it than it does, since they weren't able to, finish the job.
Yeah. And I guess I really didn't explain that right either. Like you pointed out, that was the tying touchdown in overtime with the fourth down play, and then. Of course, they turned around and scored on the very first throw on the next one. It's like, God damn it.
Game's not over yet, man. Like this, it was like disheartening it had to be, but keep playing shit.
Yeah, and that was the one where it's just like, fuck, like you did that to yourself because you got down and just weren't ready for it. And then, very controversial there too, once Arizona State had the ball, a lot of folks thought there should have been a PI situation that did not come their way. So, had lots of wrinkles in that one, and I think that's what made it fun and made it an interesting game, certainly to pay attention to in the season. So, hopefully, I think we'll get some more of those. I like you said. I guess the other thing too about that is just like, I don't know, some of those games, like I love it because you get the moment later on, but it's almost like the way that it started ruined it a little bit, because everybody got that feeling and you just didn't have that, I don't know, you didn't have that like inkling that they were hanging around enough to possibly win this game. I mean, it changed fast in the second half, but there's just so much of it early where you're like, God, this sucks. Like, why are we watching Texas fucking win this thing? So I don't know. I guess it does drive home the point that we as fans need to understand the game's not over halfway through it, but it does take a little bit of the life out of it sometimes too. I feel like.
Well, it's it's a little tricky too when you want to watch it and you're like hoping for a good game when you don't necessarily you're not specifically like rooting for someone. You just want like it's a Saturday, you want to watch a good football game, but it gets out of hand like that, and I can't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure I'm just like, I'll go do something else and check back, and I probably missed a little bit of the comeback. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to sit here if they're not even if it's going to be an ass kicking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if it was like maybe, of course, if you're a fan of the team, then you probably more times than not stick through it, or at least at least have it on still and maybe turn the volume down or something. But I mean, and so I'm just like, I'm sure I missed. I mean, I'm sure I went and did something else and came back. Okay, now it's worth watching. But yeah, I mean, it was a good finish and a good comeback, but it wasn't like it was from kickoff to final, gun. It wasn't like amazing all the way through, but I mean, that doesn't happen very often either. So
yeah, it's true. But yeah, good moment, I think, in the playoffs, short history here, and hopefully we'll get some more of those coming up this next go round here. While we're on the topic, speaking of the playoff, there has been some back and forth about what this is going to look like in the future. Of course, we've alluded to that a lot, and we haven't really decided a whole hell of a lot. These teams bickering and the conferences bickering about it, but kind of the there was supposed to be essentially kind of a handshake agreement because most of us feel like or know that the Big Ten and SEC are the two largest conferences with the largest revenue that are running the decisions on what's happening here, and they felt like if both conferences were going to have their 4 automatic qualifiers into what would be an expanded playoff, they would probably be okay with that. But the sticking point, and it sounds like the Big Ten's kind of sticking to their guns, so to speak, is, if we're going to do this, or if it's going to be any different than that, then we're going to have to make sure that the SEC is playing 9 conference games, what they have not done. They've always played 8. Of course, we've always joked about for ages before any of this changed, the mid-fall, lull where you got the week where the SEC plays, William and Mary for some reason, and everybody's like, why the hell is this on the schedule? We never, it's like one of those deals where you never got used to it either. You're always like, oh, who's so-and-so play this week? And they're like, fucking Alabama's playing UAB? What? Why? It just never made any sense the time of year, especially. And of course, whatever. Fan base are going to have their arguments about the value of what is and when and whatever. But, I think most fans outside of the SEC 100% agree with the Big Ten's thought and theory on this. And we got to make this as equitable as possible if we're going to try to get some sort of agreement on what team should qualify.
I mean, I guess maybe it's a bit exaggerated, but I don't think too much. It'd be like, if one of the NFL divisions says, instead of playing against the NFC West, we're going to play against the MAC this week instead, and then just have but you guys still play everybody else, and we'll call it the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally the same logic. It seems like it's a group that you're never going to get through. They think the more they talk and just blow smoke that finally people are just going to give in and be like, okay, fine, whatever. I guess that's just their strategy. There's no other thing to it. I mean, you can try to say this is better than that or whatever. There's no really way to quantify it. I mean, if you want to look on the field, they haven't exactly had the success that they've talked about the last couple of years. So that's all the proof you need to me. Maybe it had been like that, but I mean, I've heard several people say stop living in the past, and that's usually them. So follow your own advice there and go ahead and take that into account. So it kind of seems like it shouldn't even be an argument, but it always is. When at some point, just like either somebody who doesn't exist anymore needs to just make a call on it, which would be the NCAA, but that's not going to happen. But it's almost like, man, I don't even now when it gets to this other stuff, I'm just like, I don't even want to hear about it because I'm like, well, nothing's really going to change. But it's part of the operation now.
Yeah. Well, I had to. I don't know. My eyes about rolled out of my head when I started reading some of the comments, of course, and that's always a bad decision in the first place. But I just wanted to see like where people were coming from on this. Like, why would you have a problem with that? Essentially, like to me, it's pretty logical. Like, let's all make this as even as possible. And somebody's comment, who was obviously an SEC supporter, was like, well, why should we have to change and mess with something that's been working for over 20 some years? We've been doing this. And my immediate thought was, okay, well, why would we mess with who was in what conference for so many years? Like, we can start that argument if you want, because like we fucked up everything at this point. So don't give me the, this is tradition and what we do kind of bullshit, because we've blown all that up out of the water by this point.
Well, that also speaks to a lot of their viewpoints just on the world in general. So I mean that says a lot right there about why should we change. So but it's the same kind of mindset. It doesn't. I mean, you have a immeasurable advantage. So of course I'm seeing you not wanting to give it up, but if you want someone to meet you halfway, you're gonna have to give something up. That's just part of negotiating.
Yeah. Well, and then somebody also said, well, we have to watch, Wisconsin and whoever play whatever podunk team early in the season. You can handle doing it when we do it later in the year. Okay, well, yeah, but you also do it early in the season too.
Early and late. Yeah, they do it twice.
It's not
the thing though is like, I mean, that could be eliminated too. But then that was the issue of that's going to put a lot of universities in trouble. That's been the talk is they need the game to kind of fund their at least their athletic department at these smaller schools. That was kind of the why it kept going, is because I'm sure a lot of these schools play in-state schools and they want to a lot of times it's part of the same university system. So they're kind of helping each other out there. They're not necessarily trying to see another team go under just at the sake of their success. So, I mean, I'd be fine with them not playing those games, but you also got to be able to deal with those consequences too.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, the one thing that I do
worry about, and I can see is something that's possibly going to happen at some point too, is like, we've already, with the conference debacle, we've already ruined so many great traditional matchups that existed before. But there are still some that happen between conferences, and it's making it harder and harder for those to still exist as well when we're playing more conference games, because you got to work out, who's going to, what year, how's this going to match up with what schedule, so that they can still have the number of games that they want to have at home, which, I get, it makes sense, but you don't want to lose those games that are valuable as well to states and fans and audiences around the country. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, if we're trying to create better matchups, then why are we screwing over ones that are good and going to be paid attention to? So that's the thing that I do worry about when it comes to the more conference game scheduling stuff. I will say that the one time that I loved the situation the most, it wasn't good for the conference that I follow and the teams that were in it, but playing when there were 10 teams in the Big 12 and they were playing the round robin schedule, that's freaking awesome. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. You play everybody, it's settled. I mean, having the conference championship game after that is kind of mute and stupid, but I mean, you had to do what you had to do at that point. So, but yeah, I mean, how do you not love that? Being able to play everybody and prove it, and not have to, have. And now we've gotten these conferences so big, obviously that's impossible. So it just kind of sucks to, when it comes to the scheduling situation, and then you're going to have those arguments that come up. But I mean, that's the ultimate. There is it's clean then.
Yeah, and this probably dates back to when it was still, I guess the first iteration of the Big 12 was like the one thing that always, like, I don't necessarily understood why it happened and whatever it was, but necessarily didn't like not being able to play everybody in your conference, because then it's like, are you really the conference champion or not? And then you got to remember, like, oh, do we play this team this year, or do we play them? And so that part that's always kind of annoying. It's gotten worse as it expanded. And then just one more point on the games thing. A lot of times schools do use it, and I'll just, because the team I know most about it, as a way to get to, like, fans that might not necessarily get to game, like this year, the opening games in Kansas City, because I mean, it's not that far, but there's a pretty decent sized fan base down here, and just a 2.5 hour drive is not always an easy thing to do for most people, and to get back. And then also when you factor in price and cost of things, it might. And then even played at Wyoming a few years back, I believe, when Pelini was the coach, and it's like, people out from even from, like, and this isn't even like western Nebraska technically, but like North Platte to Lincoln, North Platte's closer to Denver than it is to Lincoln and Omaha.
Yeah.
So going out for people live like a Scottsbluff or Sidney and Chadron way out there, going to Laramie, Wyoming was a easy trip for them, and probably more budget wise more doable.
Yeah.
So a lot. I mean, and that's just one school. Other schools do that too, where you're playing kind of an away game, but it's regionally close to your fan base or where people might live. Like, go back to SEC, a lot of teams playing Atlanta and Charlotte, and just that way you give different fans that maybe can't make the trip or went to your school, or fans of the team, a chance to see your team and kind of benefit financially for that at the same time.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So yeah, I don't know. Who knows where this is all going to end up and go down the road? But I just definitely funny and a little bit comical when we're getting into those kind of arguments and the logic behind them, and it adding up much. And I'm glad that the Big Ten is sticking to their guns here a little bit and try to force the issue a little. The other interesting story as far as conference situations go, the Mountain West Conference has said that they, of course, as we know, have been kind of major transition. They took on a bunch of the former Pac-12 schools that kind of got lost in the fray when that all blew up previously. But they've said that they paused adding new schools because right now there's a little bit of an unknown. They've got a situation now between the Pac-12 and themselves as far as some litigation is concerned on who's going to be able to get into or who's going to pay who, I guess, as far as some of those exit fees were concerned. And then they're also pausing because
They have to go through new media rights negotiations. At some point you got to have somewhat of an idea of where you stand now with who you've got before you can say, oh yeah, we'll bring you on. So that's why they're kind of just let's hit the brakes here for a moment and figure this out.
Well, it'd be a little hard to sell, inventory as they term it, which is games to be shown to a network or to whatever media outlet you're trying to sell when you don't know who's going to be in the conference or who's going to, you might be selling, oh, they're going to be with us. And then, 6 months later, a year later, like, that got denied or they're getting sued and now they can't join whatever conference because we've seen that happen. And a lot of times it ends up just, coming to an agreement or they just gets thrown out. But even then, you got enough issues. I don't think you want to throw those on top of everything. So, yeah, just another messy situation. But I do. I'm almost like kind of. It stinks that you're gonna have to. They're kind of duct taping stuff together and just finding teams forever. But I'm still kind of like hoping that some of these can still stay afloat because, especially if it's gonna at the risk of having to deal with the SEC on a daily basis. That's like as many conferences that we can keep alive as possible. I think would be a good thing. But I mean, at some point, I hope that's wrong and it might change soon because we never thought we'd get to this point. So maybe it ends up going the other way eventually. But I still think it's nice to have a little bit of a, I don't know. There's still there's a space for that as well. Maybe it's not the. They're not the playoff thing. And I don't even necessarily, I'm not a fan of this automatic deal. Whatever I get, you're going to get something, but I think you need to, if you're going to have a playoff, you earn your way in. That's the whole point of a playoff. Otherwise, just go back BCS and let computers figure it out. Mm-hmm. But if they're going to go that way, at least maybe, you can form something else and maybe have a playoff subdivision or something of that sort.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that's the other side of that too that I didn't get into, and that's how we're going to sort all this out. Who the hell knows? But that's kind of what the Big Ten also is gunning for, is having these 4 automatic qualifiers, and that's where this argument kind of started too between them, the SEC. So the SEC is not really going to support that because they don't support how they schedule. Blah blah blah. Kind of pissing match. But I'm with you. I don't. When we're talking
the conference champion, but other than that,
when we're getting to 4, like that's insane. That makes no sense to me. Like I realize it may work out that way a lot of times. Yeah. Who knows? That's fine. But let the rankings be the rankings. They've already talked about having a ranking system where we're just going to go by it. And that's fine if that's how we're going to do it. Great, earn your way into that spot, and you'll get there. Obviously, you've got a little bit of an advantage just by schedule in general, at least you think you do of the conference you've created. So I think that's the way it should go. So it sounds like it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle, and we're going to get some automatics, probably more than we think is proper, but maybe it won't be as many as that. So but you're right. Keeping as many conferences around as we can and keeping this thing as somewhat similar to the way it was before is a good thing if we can keep teams around in this league in general.
The last thing is just like, I just don't understand the mindset. If you're like trying to be so braggadocious and think you're so great, then what are you worried about? Then just go play and you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing. I'll never get their mindset. It's like you have to puff your chest out. It's that you're something that you think you are. Well, then you shouldn't have to. You'll be in every year. You don't need to worry about anything. Yeah. You're everyone will see you're the best, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, we don't need to make a rule for it. You're going to do it. So, very true. Just a couple of other quick hitting notes on that too. Not that anybody cares, but the Mountain West is going to relocate their headquarters. They've been in Colorado Springs since it became a conference back in '99, but they are going to move their headquarters in July of next year to Las Vegas. So, I guess, money.
Did you blame them? Why wouldn't you?
Money says that's the thing to do. And then they also noted that they are paying any costs that are associated with adding Grand Canyon a year early. Obviously, that's a basketball, situation there for them. But, another team, I guess it makes sense to fit in the mold there. Also on the college football front, as far as we're talking like alignment and money, I did see this story, and I will preface this with saying that I haven't dove totally into the whole story here, and maybe the comments were coming from, and I didn't really prep SJ on this either, but I just saw this and I thought, to me, it's like I don't even know why this makes sense. It doesn't make sense to me. But anyways, of course, everybody's been doing their media days, and Sam Pittman with the SEC at Arkansas made a comment talking about how he believes that the antitrust settlement is now going to help level the playing field in the SEC a little bit. He was kind of making the comments that, you know, when it comes to like NILs and those types of things that Arkansas hasn't been able to necessarily keep up. He's like, I'm not going to make excuses, but if there was something that somebody came to me and said why, I would tell them, well, financially, we're probably not keeping pace with everybody else, just kind of being honest about it. But I guess I get the fact that now you've got a system to, you know, set and pay players in general from the general fund. That makes sense. And that does, I guess, to a degree, you know, make things available to people everywhere. I get that part of it. But when it comes to the NIL side of it, that's not going to change. Like, you're still going to be behind the eight ball if you're not keeping up with them now. So I guess I'm not really seeing the correlation on how he thinks that that's like the gap bridge, you know, for him.
Yeah, whether it's you know, coaches to other coaches or schools to other schools, or, you know, coaches to players or fans to players, it's like, to me, it's like people just need to worry about their own stuff and get out of other people's pockets, man. That's
true.
It's almost like a, you know, just a built-in excuse now. It seems like that. And I'm not saying there's probably not people that are in a better situation than others, but that's always been the case and probably will always be the case, because even though that's this, you know, whatever, you know, money's allowed and what's you know, not under the table anymore, it doesn't mean that that's going away. Of course, there's always going to be, like we say every time, there's going to be somebody that, you know, kind of goes off, you know, off the rails and tries to get an advantage. Or, you know, not everybody has these Texas Tech people that are willing to throw money out there, or you know, I guess I would have thought Walmart was in Arkansas's back pocket, but I guess not. I mean, maybe they did something and, you know, kind of pissed them off, and, you know, because that'd be a hell of a backer there, you know. So I mean, what's his name? Phil Knight's been around Oregon as long as he can remember, and I know Pickens passed away, but his money's still getting funneled to Oklahoma State, and they haven't had any sniff of success as of late. But they're still, you know, the money's still coming in. So it's not, I don't think, of course it helps and it's always a thing, but a lot of it's, you know, what you do with it too, and how you're, you know, kind of, there's still got to be some responsibility there with your finances, regardless of how much money you're able to spend or not spend.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is a good point. I mean, we even see that in professional sports. I mean, we've always had that argument of, you know, there's the have and have not, so to speak. You know, the Yankees can spend this amount of money, the Royals can only spend this amount. Like, that's kind of a thing too. So you're right, and it is sometimes what you do with it, and who you find, and who do you get them to buy in. I did see in that same story there was an interesting comment from a Missouri offensive lineman who said, you know, he said, like, obviously you have a chance to, you know, make money these days. And he said, with the transfer portal, if you don't have necessarily a good opportunity at the place you're at, you have the chance to go somewhere else, get a fresh start. He's like, it wasn't necessarily something I experienced in my college career, but I've seen it. He said it's worked for plenty of players, and I think it's good for the players. But he also, kind of in the same breath, was like, yeah, I love making the money, but at the end of the day, I still love football, and like football is going to be first. Which, to a degree, I mean, you're gonna
somebody comes,
you're gonna change kids' minds.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's definitely a mix of that though too. We've talked about that. Like, you know, I think that's the only place where you're gonna have a slight bit of wiggle room when it comes outside of just the finances is, you know, creating a place where people want to be and enjoy and love playing there, and you know, has the culture that, you know, okay, I'm getting enough money to feel good about it, I don't need to go somewhere else. So that's, I guess, the game that a lot of people are trying to play, and those that can do that well, I think ultimately at the end of the day, as far as consistency is concerned, are going to be the places that do the best.
Well, I think what some truth that you can take out of that is, even if someone's going to pay you, you know, a large amount of money, like, probably you're going to want to be on the field and like competing in part of that. You don't just want to, I mean, pay someone's going to give you money, you're going to take it. But if you're like at that level of competition and you've kind of worked to get to that point, there's like something inside you that wants to like try to, you know, do it on the field and, you know, prove, you know, whether you're the best or not the best, or, you know, whatever. So if you go somewhere and you don't end up working out or don't see the field or that doesn't go the way you want, money only takes you so far. It gets you in the door, but eventually you got to kind of get that what you're looking for. Because if it was that the case, I mean, you probably wouldn't be playing. You'd be looking to make money elsewhere, besides that. So there's that competitive thing that does kind of factor in as well.
Well, and I think what you've seen before this all happened too is still true, that guys want to play. Yeah, they might get a bunch of money to go somewhere else, but if there's no guarantee that they're playing at that next place, that might not be the thing that they do. So I think guys want to have the opportunity to get on the field. So that still is going to help balance it out a little bit.
You want to talk about guys wanting the opportunity? You brought up Arkansas. I don't know if you saw, but that Monte Harrison is 30 years old, and he's going to be a receiver there. He's been playing. He played in the MLB a little bit, and I mean, always I remember is because he committed to Nebraska out of high school. He was out of the Kansas City area, at least Summit West, and I guess baseball ended up working out. Now he's back in college. I'm just like, man, could you imagine being 30 playing, and then your roommate's like, I mean, I'm guessing he always has his own place, but teammate or whatever, you got to do something with him. I'm sure they. As the season gets going, a lot of schools still do that, thing where they're like, whether live in a dorm or on campus during, practice and you're like, someone's 18, like, and you're 30, you're like, dude, I got nothing in common with this guy.
Yeah, that would be an odd situation.
When he's talking, playing whatever Xbox, and you're probably, doing your taxes or whatever.
Yeah, like, bro, I go to happy hour at 4, not at 10 o'clock like you do now.
Exactly. Yeah, he's gonna be the old man getting. I mean, more about him missing curfew. So.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Speaking of the interesting player situations, I just wanted to bring this up because obviously I think a lot of people saw it and just saw the hilarity in it. And this speaks to a couple of different things. Not only the wild world of NIL that we've entered into. But also the wild world of where media information comes from and what's real and what's not. The story came out that the selection of the Cincinnati Bengals, who was the 17th pick, Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, he was back on campus in College Station working out with the team, essentially, in College Station. So then immediately the rumors started flying that, like, well, he's just going to go back to school and make a bunch of NIL money or whatever and give up this deal. He's obviously in a pissing match with the Bengals about his contract, and that happens sometimes with these, picks. That's not uncommon. But the fact that everybody started reporting it as like, oh, that's a real thing, this is news. And then, we come to find out, well, you really can't do that still. Like, we haven't totally shit on all the rules. Like, once you're declared. So, he doesn't have that opportunity. And even the coaching staff hasn't really, like, came out and said, hard and fast that no, absolutely he can't. But we've heard that from other sources. But it's just kind of a comedy of errors, I guess, as far as, like, the interesting thought even that a kid would even do that in the first place and like kind of bring that to the forefront, when that was never a possibility before because he knew he wasn't going to make any or enough money, now that it's legal. But then the other side of it too, that somebody could believe that, oh yeah, he's actually going to go back to school. Like, it's crazy.
Well, and I was like on the opposite side, I guess, of maybe some people. I was just like, hold on, you can't do that. And I start, looking into stuff because I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Like I missed something because so much has changed. A lot of new, new rules in place and, draft things have changed and all that. So I was like, maybe I missed something and thought that I was like, okay, I'm behind here. I'm not cut up. But no, you definitely can't do that still, which it makes sense why you can't, because especially now that you kind of, learn how to play the game at a younger age, probably when it comes to like finances and making deals and agents and that thing. I guess that's one, if you don't want to look at it that way, to me, I'd say it's a positive of having to, of course, a lot of these kids were getting ripped off. And I think that's come out a little bit more, and be a little more careful of who they trust when it comes to making an NIL deal and going to a different school. But so I guess to me, the positive would be like understanding that side of the business at a younger age and kind of protecting yourself financially. But I was just like, man, if you can do it, I guess whatever. But people are going to be going in the draft, year like crazy as soon as they can, and just going back to school if that's the case. So yeah. I see them doing that, and I was right, but I was just like, I mean, it's possible. Maybe I missed something or things have changed because, across the board, a lot of things have gone, something that is possible now. You thought like they'll never do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it said in the story too that like technically he did have, he was a guy that did have a year of eligibility remaining when he entered the draft. So I mean that was there, but an NCAA official I guess told the Washington Post that if a player enters the draft before his college eligibility has expired and is selected, then he has likely jeopardized his NCAA eligibility. So I guess they didn't even go as far as saying absolutely 100%, but damn well that the NFL is not going to let that happen.
Like, or other schools probably wouldn't, whoever they're playing on their schedule, and then you probably have some type of, appeal, and then by the time they get sorted out, the season's over anyways. Yeah. So it really wouldn't matter. So, I mean, that's probably why they don't really come out and just say, oh, you're forfeiting that season, because they know essentially you are, because by the time it gets sorted out, the season will be over.
Yeah. I mean, I could see a scenario in the future where, say somebody drafts a kid, he ends up with some kind of like, weird injury before he's signed. And then they just kind of make a mutual agreement that like, okay, well, we'll let you go back and hang out at campus. Maybe he gets to play a couple games at the end of the season or something once he's recovered, and then gets back into the draft again the next year. I could see something like that happening. But yeah, I mean, NFL teams they don't want to open that floodgate, because then you're ruining the whole idea of how the draft is supposed to work anyways. I mean, we've had those scenarios where so and so says I'm not playing for whoever, and they make it work, which isn't supposed to happen anyways. But this would just like totally screw that up, and I don't know how teams would ever be able to plan for that. Like you've just screwed them out of a possible franchise changing situation. They're not going to let that happen. So I guess the whole argument really began with there's, I guess, a clause about them being able to pull away some future guarantees in his contract, which the guy that they drafted the year before, they didn't have that clause in his contract. So blah, blah, blah. It's basically probably an agent pissing match is what's going on. But I'm sure they're going to figure this thing out, and he's going to play for the Bengals. He ain't going back to A&M.
It's not as easy, obviously, just because the amount of players and the nature of the game. But I do I like how the NBA is able to kind of do that. You get graded of where you may be or where you may land, and then you can make a decision by this deadline.
Yeah,
it's a lot trickier with football, just because like you can't really go work out as a it's not, you can't do an individual work. I mean, you can throw and run and stuff, but it's not enough for them to like be like, oh, we like you or we don't like you. So. But it's just kind of nice to have that option as far as that sport. I don't. It'd be nice if there's something they could do, because whether or not there's enough tape out there where they can make a decision and be like, you're NFL worthy or not yet. So I mean, I think there's some kind of advice they could give.
Yeah, that does make sense. I agree with that. One other quick thing we wanted to hit on here before we wrap up today is another funny story coming out of that school there in Tennessee on the western side of the state, Memphis. Of course, we all are well aware that Penny Hardaway has been the head of the basketball program for a while now. There's been just kind of like a whole slew of things that have never been quite up to par, so to speak. They've gotten in trouble for different recruiting situations. There's been some guys that have left other schools to go there in very awkward, scenarios, or guys that then ultimately were ruled ineligible because of how it all went down. But now the newest thing is apparently after a probe, they found out that what we know happens in a lot of places, they pretty much were caught red-handed with. Some softball players were paid to do the homework for the basketball players. Is basically what happened. So as bad as academic fraud can get, that's what they were doing. But they basically have kind of gotten a little bit of a slap on the wrist. And we all know that the NCAA doesn't have much authority or backbone anymore. But they ended up in a 2-year probation period. They were fined $30,000, which I don't even know what that does to any college program anymore. That's like, whatever, night out at the recruiting scene. And then they also took 1% of both programs' budgets. Obviously the softball and the basketball. So unfortunately the softball girls are just trying to make a buck, and then they get lumped into this deal too. But yeah, thoughts on nefarious dealings there in Memphis, SJ?
Well, I mean, I guess if you want to look at it as a strategy wise, I would hope that they just went and look who had the highest grades and picked those two, and they just happen to be softball players. Because I'm not saying that there can't be smart athletes, but usually you pick like it's usually not like an athlete for an athlete type thing. Usually it's like the summa cum laude guy, the guy with the rope around his neck at the ceremony, taking your test for your or not just random person or whatever. So hopefully they at least got a good grade out of the deal. But it kind of that's what makes the whole to me the argument against people worried about getting paid and doing this thing when you have, and this is just one case, there's who knows how many that we don't know about or going on or whatever. That's what kind of makes it all a little bit laughable to me when people are worried about somebody making a few bucks when they got this stuff going on. They're like, no big deal really. Like, honestly, who cares? Especially at a place that's had quite a bit, more serious issues too, but it has quite a bit of problems. And then it's like, and it's not even like anyways, not saying like Hardaway's job's jeopardy or in trouble or nothing. It's like, just, trying not to get caught basically.
Yeah. Don't do that again. We'll slap on the wrist. Yeah. I mean, we've seen this happen other places. I mean, this ain't the first time. It won't be the last. But I think it just drives home the point that, as we've dived further and further into this, financial situation being a part of college athletics, we know that the connection to the academic side is just getting further and further apart. I don't know that I love it. I mean, I guess I'm not one of those people who's going to sit here and say that, it absolutely has to be a, do everything great kind of situation, but you have to have some sort of feigning, existence. I mean, you're still part of the university. And I mean, if we're not going to do that, then we're just going to create some league that you don't even step on campus. Like, why would we even do that? So, you're going to have to make sure that kids are still being involved in that. And I mean, most of us are realist enough to know that at the end of the day, it is valuable for these guys to still go to school. Like, there's only 1% of these dudes that are going to go make a lot of money from playing athletics. So, that needs to be part of it. And then, if you're going to make that part of it, you've got to come up with some real things that are going to deter people from doing crap like that.
I guess I just agreed with what you said, and then kind of just to build on that, look at it as part where someone has like these advantages that a lot of people don't, and would love to take advantage of that. And like, I know, of course, your first goal is to try to be in that 1%, and that's the ultimate thing. But if just in case it doesn't work out, like, easier said than done, because I mean, I understand the time commitment and just the physical, what are you putting into it, kind of, take years off your life later in life a lot of times, depending on the sport you're playing. So that's understandable too, but it is a choice that you make. So, I mean, I think it's make the best of it. That's what you would hope. And of course, there's always going to be, even just regular life, there's always knuckleheads out there and people are going to kind of take the easy way. That's just part of things, but at least don't make it, don't turn, look the other way when someone's doing something where you're like, come on, bro. Like, this isn't even close to what you need to be, your responsibilities. Anytime a coach gets up there, you talk about, we've having media days and all this, like, everything they say is, I like this guy, do things the right way. He's a hard worker, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, then make sure that's, reality and not just, blowing smoke up our ass, which usually it is. But, and a lot of that, I mean, of course the kids are going to, they're the ones, doing it, but it does, that's whoever sets the example is what they're going to, try to get away with or try to do. So if it's not allowed, people aren't going to try to do it. If they know it's nothing that you care about, they're going to go ahead and do that.
Yeah. Well, and let's be honest too. Like, it's at this point, I think it's about an effort level, because we're not talking about these guys got to become engineers,
like that's the split atoms.
Yeah. And the support that they have just in general, as far as what you have academic resources to tutor you through all this stuff, is incredible compared to probably what it was even 10 years ago. Who knows, like, so it's about just putting in the time and the effort. I think that's more so to me, like, what really kills me about it is, go get your general studies degree or whatever the hell you're going to do.
You just have a business, something
you just have to
start
pass. Like, yeah. This isn't that hard. I mean, I realize school's not for everybody. I get that, and I get that sometimes when you're dealing with athletes, that's more so what they're good at and not the academic side of it. But like I said, the resources are there to help you, get the C's and D's to get your degree, kind of thing. So make that happen.
Well, and even just someone that's just going to school, it's not like something that you necessarily always enjoy or want to do, but you just kind of understand it's how you get to what you want to do later in life, how you get yourself a, reasonably, have a decent and comfortable lifestyle beyond college. So I guess it's just like, if you want to compare it to sports, there's, a drill or something you don't want to do, or you don't want to wake up for 5 a.m. workouts, but you realize you have to do it to get to the point you want to get to. So maybe just that, kind of somehow translate that mindset from the athletic to the academic, because I mean, I don't know, like I never necessarily enjoyed a lot of school. Certain things that were like more geared to, what I ended up doing as a career, that wasn't an issue, but you just kind of understand it's like, there's some shit you got to do in life you want to do, and the sooner you realize that, the better, because you're always going to have to do that. Even that NIL money is going to dry up at some point.
Yeah, no shit. I don't want to drive and buy a week's worth of groceries either. So, shit we do on an everyday basis, we don't want to do.
I've been it's hit that off alarm button is really easy, and not set it and be like, oh, whoopsie, but it's not part of life.
There are consequences. So. Yeah, all right. So that's kind of what we had on our slate here this week. Obviously, if there are any other topics that you feel that you want to hear about or have something to chime in about, reach out to us. Or if you've got a game on your list from last year that you really loved in college football that you'd like us to give a mention to in the program, we'd love to do that. So hit us up on social media at SJMBets, at CherokeeCP. Those are the handles there on Twitter, so you can find us there. And, of course, putting out those picks when we have them coming at you there, too, as SJ did for, fight weekend. So make sure you're doing that. And then also make sure that you are liking and sharing the podcast wherever you may be enjoying it. All the major platforms. Spotify happens to be our main upload host, but it's available to you everywhere. And then we'd love if you'd like to subscribe, share the YouTube channel as well. We, of course, do some videos there for you as well. That's going to be ramping up, so we'll be looking for that. And we'd love it if you would hop on there. Might have some other fun things coming down the pike on that front as well. So we'd really love you to latch on. So that's where you can find us. We appreciate your support and taking some time to, escape from your reality for a little bit to listen to us here on the show. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another round of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next time for some more covers.